The Lexington Gallery of Modern Art was the kind of place where silence had style, hushed footsteps on marble, curated jazz floating through unseen speakers, walls lit to perfection. On a normal day, it served as a shrine to abstraction. But tonight, it was something else. A private exhibition, Echoes in Bronze, had drawn in Los Angeles' elite, donors, critics, influencers, a few carefully selected press. It was a tribute to Black brilliance across generations. Photos of young Muhammad Ali, a sculpture of Maya Angelou mid-poem, and an enormous painting of Serena Williams adorned the entrance hall. The invitation said, "Celebrate those who shaped culture by daring to exist." The irony would land later. Kobe Bryant stood just beyond the rotating glass door, his presence calm but unmistakable. Tall, still, a dark gray hoodie hood pulled just far enough to shade his face, and a black LA cap low on his brow. He didn't walk in like a man used to applause. He walked in like a man who wanted to look and be normal. The woman at the reception desk, Natalie, glanced up without recognition. Her smile, practiced and polished, faltered slightly as she saw him approach. She was new, a recent art history graduate, first week on the job. She had been told to expect VIP guests, and that guest lists were non-negotiable. "Good evening," she said, hands resting neatly atop the check-in iPad. "Are you on the list?" Kobe nodded once. "Should be under Bryant." She tapped the screen. Scrolled. Her brow furrowed. "First name? Kobe." Her fingers hesitated. Then typed again. Still nothing. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice lowering. "I don't see your name here." "That's all right," he said quietly. "I was invited by Maya." Maya Lin. Natalie stiffened. She had met the gallery director exactly once, but invoking her name didn't change the procedure. "Did she give you a confirmation code? Or email you the digital pass?" Kobe paused. He had neither. He hadn't expected to need them. "No," he said. "She just told me to come. I helped with this show, a little." Natalie gave a tight smile. "I understand. It's just, we've had a few people try to get in tonight who weren't actually invited. I'm sure you understand." "I do," Kobe replied, nodding slightly. "But I think if you call her, she'll confirm." She hesitated. Behind her, two gallery interns exchanged a look. And then she reached under the counter, not for a phone, but for a discreet black button. A soft chime went off somewhere near the side entrance. Within 30 seconds, two security guards emerged from the hallway, suited, expressionless, trained for subtlety. Natalie didn't look up. She whispered to one of them. Kobe stood exactly where he was. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't take off the cap. His posture didn't change. But something in the air did. The security guard stepped forward, adopting the calm tone of authority. "Sir, would you mind stepping aside with us for just a moment? We just need to confirm something." Kobe blinked slowly. He exhaled. "Sure," he said. He moved 2 steps to the left, just far enough to not block the desk. A few guests glanced over. Most didn't notice. Not yet. Not until one of the interns whispered, Is that Kobe Bryant?" Natalie didn't react. Her eyes were glued to the iPad, pretending to double-check the list. The moment stretched thin. And then, from across the room, someone shouted, not loudly, but with sharp urgency, "Kobe!" Heads turned. Maya Lin, the gallery director, in a navy blue blazer and heels, appeared like lightning through the crowd. "Oh my God," she said, her face flushing as she approached. "Kobe, I am so sorry." And that was when Natalie realized. The silence in the lobby was no longer curated. It was earned. "Kobe," Maya said again, her voice low, full of dismay, "I didn't think you'd come through the main entrance." "I wanted to walk in like everybody else," he replied simply. She stopped short in front of him, her eyes darting between his face, the security guards, and Natalie, who had taken half a step back, her expression now shifting not to panic, not yet, but to dawning, unmistakable recognition. "I'm so sorry," Maya whispered again. "This shouldn't have happened." Kobe offered a polite nod. "It's all right." But it wasn't. It wasn't all right, and everyone in the room could feel that now. The air had thickened, and not from heat. Whispers stirred from the sidewalls. guests peeking from behind sculptures, murmuring names with increasing clarity. Is that really him? Kobe Bryant? What happened? Natalie's hands fumbled with the tablet, her fingers now too nervous to navigate the screen smoothly. She didn't speak. She couldn't. The security guard stood awkwardly nearby, not dismissed, not ordered away, unsure whether to retreat or remain as sentinels to a situation that had just turned from routine into something deeply uncomfortable. One of the guards finally spoke, voice low and professional. "Mr. Bryant, I apologize. We weren't informed." "You were doing your job," Kobe cut in calmly. "That's what she told you to do." Maya turned. "That's not how we operate." Kobe looked at her, not harshly, but with something cooler than anger. "It's exactly how you operate." The room grew still again. A sculpted bust of Jackie Robinson stood just beyond the entrance to the exhibition hall, cast in shadow by the angled light. Kobe glanced at it, then back at Maya. "You can celebrate us in bronze," he said quietly, "but it doesn't mean you see us when we're standing in front of you." Maya looked stricken. "Please come inside. I want to show you everything. You're the reason this even happened." Kobe didn't move. His eyes, unreadable behind the shade of his cap, slowly settled on Natalie. She stood small behind the counter now, her jaw clenched. Her gaze never met his. He didn't ask her for an apology. Didn't expect one. That wasn't the point. He turned back to Maya. "You said this place was built on honoring presence. That it wasn't about spectacle or fame, but memory." "It is," Maya insisted. "It is. Then start remembering while we're still alive." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. A silence deeper than embarrassment filled the lobby. It was the sound of systems glitching in real time. Protocols failing. Good intentions being weighed and found wanting. Finally, Kobe said, "Let's go." Maya gestured toward the glass doors that led to the main exhibit. He followed her, his stride even, deliberate, each footstep landing with a quiet finality that echoed against the polished floor. The two security guards stepped aside, unsure whether to follow or disappear. As he passed Natalie, Kobe didn't pause, didn't glance back. But behind him, she stood frozen, heart pounding, shame boiling beneath her skin. She had denied entry to the man whose face was sculpted on the exhibit's second wall. Not because she didn't know who he was, but because, for a moment, she didn't want to know. Because her training had taught her to trust protocol. Not presence, not instinct, not the quiet gravity of a man who hadn't needed to raise his voice to make a point that none of them would forget. The gallery doors whispered closed behind them, cutting off the murmurs of the lobby like a dropped curtain. Inside, the air was different, not quieter, just older. Every piece in the Echoes in Bronze exhibition radiated the weight of what it meant to endure, to create under pressure, to be seen and still misread. Maya walked slightly ahead of Kobe, her voice muted by shame. "This room was designed to feel like breath," she said. "We wanted each piece to have space, to resonate." Kobe didn't answer. His eyes moved over the first wall, a framed photo of Paul Robeson, arms crossed, fire behind his stare. Below it, the quote read, "The artist must take sides. He must elect to fight for freedom or slavery." How strange, Kobe thought, to read those words under gallery lighting. Maya slowed. "That was the moment I knew we needed your name in here." Kobe's gaze drifted. The next piece, a bronze bust of Billie Holiday, her mouth open in silent song. Then a shadow box jersey belonging to Jackie Joyner-Kersee. A boxing glove from Joe Louis. Each artifact gleamed, heavy with reverence. Kobe's steps faltered only once, in front of his own piece. It was unexpected. A life-size sculpture of him mid-motion, not in a dunk, not in celebration, but standing still, sweat dripping down his brow, hands on hips, breathing. It was an image captured from a moment between plays, when the noise dropped and clarity took over. No ball, no scoreboard, just presence. The plaque beneath read, "Kobe Bryant. Stillness is where the work begins." Kobe looked at it for a long time, longer than he meant to. "I didn't know you were using that photo," he said finally, voice soft. "We wanted something real, Maya replied. Not the logo. Not the legend. Then maybe someone should have told the girl at the front desk. Maya's posture sank. She's new. They always are. He didn't say it unkindly. That was what made it land so hard. A silence spread between them again, but this one didn't throb with tension. It carried something heavier. A shared realization. I'll talk to her, Maya said. Talk to all of them. Kobe moved to the next display, where a looping video played a montage of historical speeches. Baldwin, King, Nina Simone. The audio was faint, but clear enough to catch one line. It's not enough to be quietly non-racist. We must be actively anti-racist. He turned to Maya. You've got the art right. Now fix the front door. She nodded. Would you be willing to say something? To the staff? I think it would mean more coming from you. Kobe looked at her. Not dismissively, thoughtfully. Then, without words, he nodded once. Behind them, the security guard who had approached earlier lingered near the exhibit entrance. Not intruding, just observing. He had removed his earpiece. From the sculpture of Billy to the footage of Simone, the room began to feel heavier, not in discomfort, but in responsibility. Outside the glass, through a thin partition, Natalie still stood at her post. She hadn't sat back down. Her fingers hovered over the tablet like she didn't know what to touch anymore. One of the interns beside her whispered something, but she didn't respond. All she could think of was how easily she'd looked through him, how certain she'd been, and how deeply wrong that certainty had turned out to be. The gallery lights had dimmed slightly as they stepped into the east wing, a quieter space where sculpture gave way to photography, where walls bore grainy stills of protest lines and firsts. The first black astronaut, the first black woman on Broadway, the first black quarterback to win a championship. Each photo framed with reverence, each caption beginning with "Before anyone believed, they did." Kobe walked slower here. Behind him, Maya kept her distance, sensing the shift. This wasn't a tour anymore. It was something else, a kind of reckoning. Kobe stopped in front of a black and white image of a college gym. The year was 1996. The caption read, "First black high school athlete to receive simultaneous offers from all 5 Ivy League schools." The boy in the photo had wide eyes. Not fear, just rawness. That pre-battle calm Kobe knew too well. He didn't read the plaque. He just looked. Because he knew the look on that boy's face. Had worn it himself once. Maya approached slowly. You okay? I used to think places like this were for them, he said. The ones who marched. The ones who bled. Maya nodded. You're one of them, Kobe. He looked at her, not confrontationally, but with something unreadable. You sure? Her mouth opened. Closed. He walked on. Further down the corridor, a wall-sized projection rotated slowly between portraits. Malcolm X, Lorraine Hansberry, James Baldwin. Then, like an afterthought, Kobe's own face. Young, triumphant, arms lifted after his first title. He studied it only briefly. I always hated that shot, he said. Really? It's iconic. It's incomplete. He folded his arms. They love the finish line. Nobody wants to see the bruises from mile 10. Maya stayed quiet. They moved past another series. This time, snapshots of protest signs. I am a man. No justice, no peace. Black Lives Matter. The last one caught Kobe's eye, not for the words, but for the angle. The photo had been taken from the back of a crowd, showing only shoulders, raised fists, a sea of presence with no faces. They used that one in the downtown protests last summer, Maya said softly. Kobe nodded. Yeah, I was there. She looked at him, startled. Really? No cameras. No press. Just walked. Listened. He paused. I thought it might mean something. Being there. And did it. He didn't answer right away. Then, it meant something to me. They reached the end of the corridor, a quiet alcove with a single bench. Above it, etched into the wall, was the closing quote of the exhibit. When they write about us, make sure they remember we were more than moments. We were human. Kobe sat. His hands rested loosely on his knees. For the first time, He let himself feel the weight in his shoulders, not fatigue, but memory, of hotel lobbies that asked for ID twice, of neighbors who double-checked his mailbox, of store managers who smiled only when cameras were around. He remembered being 17 and followed in a jewelry store. He remembered being 30 and asked to take a photo with someone's kid, only to be told, "But don't wear that hoodie." He remembered last week, a man on a plane who assumed he was security for someone else. He let those memories sit beside him now, because that was the part the exhibit missed. Not the brilliance, the burden, the reminder that no matter how many trophies you win, there are still rooms that greet you with suspicion before recognition. Maya sat beside him, silent. "I'll talk to your staff," Kobe said finally. "But I'm not going to give a speech." She nodded. "Just speak." He didn't answer. He didn't need to. By the time they returned to the lobby, the mood had curdled into something wordless. Not panic. Not quite shame. Something heavier. The kind of stillness that descends when people realize they've been part of something they can't explain away. Maya stood near the reception desk and cleared her throat gently. "Can I have everyone's attention, please?" Staff turned. Interns, assistants, curators, security. Natalie stayed behind the desk, back straight, eyes fixed on the screen even though she wasn't reading it. "We're going to pause for a few minutes," Maya continued. "Mr. Bryant has agreed to speak with us." Kobe stepped forward. Not in front of them, but among them. He didn't climb a podium. Didn't raise his voice. He stood exactly where he was, hands tucked into the front pocket of his hoodie, the brim of his cap still low. "I'm not here to lecture anybody," he said. "And I'm not here to embarrass anyone." He paused. "I've walked into a lot of rooms in my life. Some with cheering crowds. Some with dead silence. Some where they knew exactly who I was, and some where they didn't care." His voice was steady. It carried. This was different. Because this is a space built to honor people who look like me. And somehow, I still wasn't seen. A quiet ripple passed through the group. No one looked directly at Natalie, but everyone knew. "I've been followed in stores," Kobe continued. "Been asked to take the service elevator. Been told, we're full at restaurants while the tables stayed empty." That's not new. He looked around. What is new is that some of you think you're immune to that. Because you work in a gallery. Because you post the right hashtags. Because your mission statement says inclusion. But bias doesn't care about your politics. It shows up in your decisions. It hides in your comfort zones. He let that breathe. It's not about knowing who I am. It's about assuming who I'm not. One of the curators looked down at her shoes, and in turn coughed lightly, unsure of what to do with his hands. The two security guards stood still, arms crossed, not in defiance, but in acknowledgement. "Tonight could have gone a lot of ways," Kobe said. "I could have walked out. Could have called someone. Could have posted. But none of that changes what happened." His eyes settled, finally, on Natalie. "I don't need an apology," he said. "But I hope you ask yourself why the first thought wasn't to ask who I was. Just to assume I wasn't who I said I was." Natalie's mouth moved slightly, as if to speak, but no words came. He turned back to the rest. There are a lot of people who won't speak up when it happens to them. People who don't have a recognizable name or a statue down the hall. They'll walk away and carry that silence home. He paused again. "I don't speak for them, but I see them. And I hope after tonight, you do too." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was sacred. One of the security guards gave a quiet nod. The intern near the wall swallowed hard, like something just hit him he hadn't expected. Maya stepped forward. "Thank you, Kobe." He didn't respond. He just gave a small nod and stepped back. No applause followed. Just awareness. And that, he knew, was more powerful than any noise. When Kobe stepped back, the stillness he left behind didn't vanish. It settled into the room like dust. Not the kind that you wipe away. The kind that clings to corners, forces you to look at how long it's been there. Nobody moved at first. Not the staff. Not the interns. Not even the guests trickling back into the lobby with half-finished drinks and carefully casual glances. They sensed it too, something had cracked beneath the smooth marble and polite smiles. Maya cleared her throat, trying to reset the space. Everyone can return to their posts, she said softly. Thank you. People nodded. Not with the usual brisk energy of high-end hospitality, but with the weight of awareness. The kind that doesn't come from a memo. The kind that only lands when you're made to feel it. Natalie didn't move. She stood behind the check-in desk, the same iPad in front of her, still displaying the incomplete guest list that had triggered it all. Her fingers hovered above the screen, then curled into her palms. She didn't cry. She didn't rush out. She just stood there, silently realizing that no protocol, no training, no line of defense could excuse the fact that she had looked a black man in the face, one of the most accomplished of his generation, and still asked him to prove himself. Not because of his behavior, not because of any rule, because of how he looked. Across the room, one of the security guards, a man named Thomas, stepped closer to her. He was older, maybe mid-50s, salt in his beard, kindness in his posture. You all right? He asked, voice low. Natalie nodded too quickly. I didn't know. That's the point, he said. She looked at him, eyes damp. I thought I was doing everything right. Thomas gave her a long, measured look. Sometimes, he said, we don't know the difference between being trained and being conditioned. Natalie exhaled sharply. It wasn't a sob, just breath. But it shook her. Thomas didn't say anything else. Just patted the side of the desk gently before walking away. On the far end of the lobby, Maya stood with Kobe near the now-silent sculpture of Jackie Robinson. Her voice was quiet. We're going to revise how we train everyone, she said. Start from the ground up. Kobe nodded once. Good. I'll talk to the board, she added. I want to bring in new voices. Not just artists. Advisors. Staff. People who've lived what we claim to honor. Kobe didn't respond immediately. His eyes were on the hallway behind them, where his own statue stood, still and silent. You don't fix this with a plaque, he said. Or another exhibit. I know. Then fix the instinct. She nodded. Can I ask something? She added. Sure. Why didn't you leave? Kobe glanced at her. Because if I walked out, he said, you'd still be telling people tomorrow how proud you are of the exhibit. Without ever learning what went wrong. Maya's expression cracked, just a little. I didn't come here to teach anybody, Kobe added. But if it's gonna happen, I'd rather it happen face to face. With that, he turned. No grand farewell. No dramatic gesture. Just the quiet grace of someone who had done what needed to be done. As he walked toward the gallery exit, some guests stepped aside without realizing they had. Others watched, unsure if they should say something, do something, acknowledge him now that they knew. But Kobe didn't slow down for recognition. He moved the same way he'd entered, steady, silent, unmistakably present. The gallery doors parted with a soft sigh, like they too recognized who was walking through them now. Outside, the air had cooled. Evening light spilled across the steps in long amber streaks. Kobe didn't rush. He never did. His steps down the stone stairway were as measured as his words inside, purposeful, grounded. From the top of the stairs, Natalie watched through the glass. He didn't look back. She wasn't sure what she expected. A glance, maybe. A nod. Something to soften the knot that had tied itself inside her chest. But none came. And somehow, that felt right. This wasn't a story where you get absolution in a smile. This was the kind of story you sit with. Kobe's SUV was parked across the street, the windows already fogging with the chill in the air. He reached it, paused with his hand on the handle, then turned slightly, not back toward the gallery, but toward the mural on the side of the adjacent building. He hadn't noticed it before. A wide brushstroke painting of black and brown faces, children, elders, workers, icons, overlapping in a burst of color. At the bottom, in bold white script. We are more than what they expect. Kobe stared for a moment. Then, without a word, climbed into the vehicle and shut the door. Inside the gallery, Maya stood at the window beside Natalie now, her hands folded. He didn't say much on the way out, Maya said. Natalie nodded. He didn't have to. They stood there for a while, the space between them filled with the kind of silence that held weight, not absence. I should have known, Natalie said finally. The way he carried himself. You knew something, Maya corrected gently. But your training taught you to ignore it. Natalie bit the inside of her cheek. I don't want to be the person who does that again. Then don't. It was that simple. It always had been. A few feet away, one of the younger interns approached with hesitation. She was no older than 20, curly hair tied back, a small notebook clutched to her chest. Ms. Lin, she asked. Can I suggest something? Maya turned. Of course. The intern glanced toward the sculpture corridor. I think we should add what he said. That line. The one about respect. Natalie looked at her, puzzled. What line? The intern smiled faintly. The real measure of respect is how you treat someone when you don't know who they are. Maya blinked. Natalie slowly pulled out her phone and opened the gallery app, scrolling through the event transcript the press team had started uploading. The line wasn't there. The intern had remembered it, because it had stayed with her. Write it down, Maya said. We'll find a place for it. Natalie closed the app. No, she said. We'll make a place for it. Outside, the SUV turned the corner and disappeared. But Kobe's presence, his choice to stay, to speak, to leave without anger, remained like a fingerprint. Not flashy, not framed. Just there. Something real. Something no one could scrub out with silence. 2 weeks later, the Lexington Gallery opened its doors to the public. The exhibit, Echoes in Bronze, remained largely unchanged. The same sculptures. The same photographs. The same reverent lighting and elegant spacing. But the air felt different. The first sign was small, just a single frame, now installed on the wall just beyond the reception desk. It wasn't gold-leafed or backlit. Just simple black mat, white text. The real measure of respect is how you treat someone when you don't know who they are. Kobe Bryant. No label. No bio. No context. Just the words. They caught people off guard. More than once, someone stopped reading halfway through, turned toward the check-in counter, and then slowly back again, as if realizing what they might have overlooked on the way in. Natalie was still behind the desk. Her badge now clipped next to a small photo of the exhibit, not Kobe's statue, but the mural from outside, the one he had stopped to study. She'd added it herself. The gallery's bias training, once a year HR slide deck, was now a multi-session program. Not just a requirement, a process. Staff sat in circles. They talked. They listened. They replayed the footage from that night, not because it went viral, it hadn't. There had been no leaked cell phone clips, no social media blow-up. Just a moment, one that lived inside them now. Natalie had taken it the hardest. Not with performative guilt, but with quiet correction. She stayed after hours, redesigned the guest list system, added an approach guidance protocol not because she was told to, but because she never wanted hesitation to become harm again. And every time a guest walked in wearing something unexpected, sweats, hoodies, sneakers, she smiled a little more deliberately, asked a little more kindly. Not to overcompensate, but to rebuild trust where it had once been broken. In the second gallery room, Kobe's statue still stood mid-breath, not mid-shot. Visitors now lingered longer there than before. Some read the plaque, others didn't. A few looked confused. Wasn't this the guy who used to dunk on people? Why was this the image they chose? The answer wasn't printed anywhere. But if you stood long enough, you felt it. That stillness. That presence. One afternoon, a group of high school students came through on a field trip. Among them, a quiet kid, tall, lean, hoodie over his curls, slowed near the statue. His friends moved ahead, laughing, but he just stood there, hands in his pockets. A volunteer came over, older woman, kind voice. You know who that is? She asked gently. He nodded. My coach still makes us watch clips, he muttered. The woman smiled. He ever show you this moment? The boy shook his head. The volunteer leaned closer, eyes soft. Most people only remember the way he moved, she said. But this was the moment he stood still and changed a room without touching a ball. The boy didn't say anything, but he looked again, and this time he saw it. Epilogue. Kobe never returned to the gallery. He didn't need to. He wasn't a name on a donor wall or a PR stunt in a press release. He was a test the institution didn't know it was taking, and a quiet reckoning they chose to honor, not erase. No headlines. No hashtags. Just presence. And presence, when it's real, echoes longer than applause.